Jonathan Barrett sat in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Chiang Mai, Thailand, staring at his laptop screen as he processed invoices for a Dallas-based property consulting firm that had hired him out of pity. He was 62 years old, working remotely for $1,200 a month, living in a building where the elevator rarely worked and the air conditioning rattled like a dying animal. 18 months earlier, he had $900,000 in combined savings and investment accounts, a stunning 3-bedroom villa overlooking the Andaman Sea in Phuket, and a wife named Ratchanak, who called him her soulmate and promised to build an empire with him in paradise. Now he had nothing. The money was gone. $720,000, transferred systematically over 6 months to accounts that Ratchanak controlled, then moved offshore to Dubai, before Jonathan even realized what was happening. The villa was gone, too quietly transferred into her name through legal documents he had signed, without fully understanding, trusting his wife to handle the Thai bureaucracy he found impenetrable. And Ratchanak herself was gone, vanished from Thailand entirely, operating under a new identity in the United Arab Emirates, where Thai law could not touch her and American complaints meant nothing. Her name was Ratchanak Suwanza, though she had told Jonathan to call her Namwan, which she said meant honey water in Thai. She was 35 years old, beautiful in an understated way, with the kind of education and sophistication that made her seem completely different from the stereotypical Thai women who targeted lonely foreign men. She spoke fluent English, had studied business at a university in Bangkok, and worked as a freelance interpreter and translator for tourists and expats. She was not a bar girl. She was not uneducated or desperate. She was professional, ambitious, and articulate. She was exactly the kind of woman Jonathan thought he could trust. They met in a Phuket expat Facebook group in March of 2023. Jonathan had posted asking for recommendations on lawyers who could help him navigate Thai property law, and Namwan had responded with a detailed, helpful message offering to connect him with reputable professionals. Their initial conversations were purely practical. She helped him understand the legal requirements for foreign property ownership, explained the intricacies of Thai banking regulations, and translated documents for him. She was competent, reliable, and never asked for anything in return. But over time, their professional relationship evolved into something personal. Namwan started asking about his life, his family, his dreams. She told him about her own struggles, about being a single woman in her mid-30s in Thai society, about the pressure to marry and settle down, about her desire to find a partner who valued intelligence and ambition rather than just youth and beauty. She made Jonathan feel seen, understood, appreciated in ways he had not felt since his wife died 3 years earlier. Within 6 months, they were married. Within 8 months, Jonathan had transferred most of his assets into joint accounts and business entities that Namwan managed. Within 11 months, Namwan had systematically moved $720,000 out of Jonathan's reach, transferred the villa ownership entirely into her name, and disappeared from Thailand with a new passport and a carefully constructed exit strategy that left Jonathan with no legal recourse and no way to recover what he had lost. Jonathan had been a successful property developer in Dallas for over 30 years. He had built residential subdivisions, flipped houses, managed rental properties, and accumulated significant wealth through careful planning and smart investments. He was not naive. He was not stupid. He was not the kind of man who made reckless decisions or ignored warning signs, but he was lonely, grieving, and desperate to believe that someone could love him for who he was rather than what he had. And Namwan had exploited that vulnerability with the precision of a professional who had done this before and would almost certainly do it again. This is the story of how Jonathan Barrett went from being a wealthy retired property developer, living his dream retirement in Phuket, to a broken man working a low-wage remote job in a cheap apartment in Chiang Mai. This is the story of how intelligence, experience, and financial success mean nothing when loneliness and grief leave you vulnerable to someone who knows exactly how to exploit those weaknesses. And this is the story of why, in Thailand, the most dangerous scammers are not the obvious ones. They are the ones who look, act, and sound like everything you thought you wanted. Jonathan Barrett had not always been a lonely man. He was born in Dallas in 1961, the oldest of 3 children in a middle-class family. His father owned a small construction company, and Jonathan grew up learning the business from the ground up, spending summers on job sites, learning to read blueprints, understanding the economics of building and development. He went to the University of Texas at Austin, studied business administration, and returned to Dallas with plans to follow in his father's footsteps. In his late 20s, Jonathan started his own property development company, focusing initially on small residential projects, duplexes, small apartment buildings, modest subdivisions. He was good at identifying undervalued properties, understanding market trends, and managing construction projects efficiently. By his mid-30s, he was financially comfortable. By his 40s, he was wealthy. He married a woman named Catherine when he was 34. She was a real estate agent he had met through work, and they had a strong partnership built on mutual respect and shared professional interests. They had one daughter, Emily, who was born when Jonathan was 37. The marriage was solid, if not passionate. They worked well together, supported each other's careers, and built a comfortable life in a large house in North Dallas. But in 2017, when Jonathan was 56, Catherine was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She fought for 3 years, enduring surgeries, chemotherapy, and radiation treatments. She died in November of 2020, just as the world was emerging from the worst of the COVID pandemic. Jonathan was devastated. Catherine had been his partner for 26 years, and her death left a void in his life that felt impossible to fill. Emily was 30 years old when her mother died, living in Seattle with her husband and 2 young children. She flew to Dallas for the funeral, stayed for 2 weeks, then returned to her life. Jonathan understood. She had her own family, her own responsibilities, but he felt profoundly alone in the large house where he and Catherine had raised Emily, where every room held memories of a life that no longer existed. For the first year after Catherine's death, Jonathan threw himself into work, but the property market in Dallas was changing, and Jonathan was tired. He was 60 years old, wealthy enough to retire comfortably, and increasingly aware that he did not want to spend the rest of his life alone in Dallas, working on projects that no longer excited him. He started researching retirement destinations abroad. He had traveled extensively for business: Mexico, Costa Rica, Portugal, Thailand. Thailand had always fascinated him. He had visited Bangkok and Phuket several times for vacation, and he had been struck by the natural beauty, the low cost of living, and the welcoming culture. He watched YouTube channels run by American expats living in Thailand, read blogs about retiring in Southeast Asia, and joined Facebook groups for foreigners living in Phuket. In late 2022, Jonathan made his decision. He sold most of his remaining property holdings in Dallas, liquidated his retirement accounts, and moved approximately $900,000 into liquid savings and investment accounts. He kept his U.S. citizenship, maintained a small consulting relationship with a former business partner in Dallas, and in February of 2023, booked a one-way ticket to Phuket with the intention of making Thailand his permanent home. Emily was not supportive. She said it was too soon after Catherine's death, that he was making impulsive decisions driven by grief, that he should wait at least another year before making such a drastic change. But Jonathan told her he had already made up his mind. He was 62 years old, wealthy, healthy, and ready to start the next chapter of his life. Emily reluctantly accepted his decision, but she made him promise to be careful and to call her regularly. Jonathan arrived in Phuket in early March of 2023. He checked into a serviced apartment near Patong Beach and began the process of establishing himself in Thailand. He needed to understand property law, banking regulations, visa requirements, and the various legal complexities of living permanently in a foreign country. He posted questions in expat Facebook groups, hired lawyers, and talked to other foreigners who had successfully made the transition. That was when he met Namwan. Namwan's first message to Jonathan was professional, detailed, and extraordinarily helpful. He had posted in a Phuket expat Facebook group asking for recommendations on lawyers who could advise him on property purchases, and Namwan had responded with a private message offering to connect him with reputable professionals she had worked with. She explained that she was a freelance translator and interpreter who specialized in helping foreign clients navigate Thai bureaucracy, and she offered to answer any questions he had free of charge. Jonathan was immediately impressed. Her English was impeccable, her knowledge of Thai law was extensive, and she was patient and thorough in her explanations. Over the next few weeks, They exchanged dozens of messages as Jonathan worked through the complex process of understanding his options for property ownership in Thailand. Namwan connected him with lawyers, translated documents, and even accompanied him to meetings with government officials to ensure he understood what was being said. She never asked for money. When Jonathan offered to pay her for her time, she politely declined, saying she enjoyed helping people and that it was good practice for her language skills. Jonathan appreciated her generosity, and he was struck by how different she was from what he had expected. The expat forums were full of warnings about Thai women who targeted wealthy foreign men, but Namwan seemed to be the opposite: educated, independent, professional, and genuinely helpful without any apparent ulterior motives. After about a month of working together, Namwan suggested they meet for coffee. Jonathan agreed, and they met at a small cafe near Kata Beach. Namwan was even more impressive in person than she had been online. She was 35 years old, attractive in an understated way, dressed professionally in slacks and a blouse, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who was comfortable in both Thai and Western cultural contexts. They talked for 2 hours. Namwan told Jonathan about her background. She had grown up in Bangkok, studied business and languages at Thammasat University, and had worked for several years as a corporate translator before deciding to go freelance so she could live in Phuket. She said she had been in a long-term relationship with a Thai businessman that had ended badly 2 years earlier, and she had decided to focus on her career and her own happiness rather than rushing into another relationship. Jonathan told her about Catherine, about Emily, about his career in Dallas, and his decision to retire in Thailand. Namwan listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, and at the end of the conversation, she said something that struck Jonathan deeply. "You seem like a man who has accomplished so much, but who is still looking for meaning. I think Thailand can give you that meaning, but you have to be open to it." Jonathan felt seen in a way he had not felt since Catherine's death. Namwan understood him. She appreciated his accomplishments, but she also recognized the emptiness that had driven him to leave everything behind and start over in a foreign country. They began meeting regularly, initially for professional reasons, but increasingly for personal ones. Namwan would join Jonathan for dinner after helping him with paperwork. They would take walks along the beach, talking about life, philosophy, dreams, and regrets. Jonathan found himself looking forward to seeing her, and he began to recognize that his feelings for her were becoming more than just professional respect. Call to action. If you're watching this and thinking Jonathan should have known better, understand that sophisticated romance scammers don't look like scammers. They look like educated, professional, independent women who earn your trust before they destroy your life. Subscribe to this channel and share this video to help protect others from the kind of high-level manipulation that cost Jonathan everything. His story is about to take a devastating turn, and you need to see how even the smartest, most successful people can be completely destroyed by someone who knows exactly how to exploit their vulnerabilities. By May of 2023, Jonathan and Namwan's relationship had evolved from professional collaboration to genuine romantic partnership. Namwan had helped Jonathan find and purchase a stunning 3-bedroom villa in the hills above Kamala Beach, a property with panoramic ocean views, a private pool, and enough space for Jonathan to establish a home office, and maybe, eventually, host Emily and her family when they visited. The villa purchase had been complex. Thai law prohibited foreigners from owning land, so the property had to be structured through a long-term lease or a company arrangement. Namwan had guided Jonathan through the process, connecting him with lawyers, translating documents, and ensuring everything was done legally and properly. Jonathan trusted her completely. She had proven herself competent, reliable, and genuinely interested in his well-being. Namwan had also become an emotional anchor for Jonathan. She understood his grief over Catherine's death in ways that no one else seemed to. She never tried to replace Catherine or minimize Jonathan's loss. Instead, she simply provided companionship, understanding, and a sense that the future could still hold happiness and meaning. Jonathan felt himself falling in love with her, and he was both excited and terrified by the intensity of his feelings. One evening in late May, as they sat on the terrace of Jonathan's new villa, watching the sun set over the Andaman Sea, Namwan turned to him and said, "John, I need to tell you something. I am falling in love with you. I know it is complicated. You are still grieving. I am Thai, and you are American. There is an age difference. But I cannot help how I feel. You make me feel valued and respected in ways I have never felt before." Jonathan felt his heart race. "I am falling in love with you too," he said. "I have been afraid to say it because I did not want to rush things or make you uncomfortable. But you have brought meaning back into my life. You have made me feel like the future is worth looking forward to." Namwan smiled, tears in her eyes. "Then we should not be afraid. We should embrace this. We should build something beautiful together." That night, Namwan stayed at the villa. Within a week, she had moved in completely, bringing her belongings from her small apartment in Patong. They lived together with an ease that surprised Jonathan. Namwan was organized, independent, and respectful of his space and routines. She worked during the day on her freelance projects, and in the evenings they would cook together, sit by the pool, and talk about their dreams for the future. Namwan began talking about business opportunities. She said she wanted to start a travel consultancy that would help wealthy Western clients plan luxury vacations and long-term stays in Thailand. She said Jonathan's experience in property development and business management, combined with her language skills and cultural knowledge, would make them a perfect partnership. She suggested they formalize their relationship both personally and professionally to give them legal protection and legitimacy in the Thai business world. Jonathan liked the idea. He had been thinking about what he wanted to do with his time in Thailand, and building a business with Namwan seemed like the perfect project. Meaningful, challenging, and something they could create together. But there was a complication. Thai business law required that any company working in certain service sectors needed to have Thai majority ownership. If they wanted to start a legitimate business, it would be easiest if Namwan owned at least 51% of the company. Namwan suggested an alternative. If they got married, they could structure everything more simply. As his spouse, she could help him navigate property ownership, business licensing, and banking in ways that would be impossible as just a girlfriend. She said marriage would also give them social legitimacy in Thai culture, where unmarried couples living together were still viewed with some disapproval, especially in professional contexts. Jonathan was hesitant. He had been married to Catherine for 26 years, and the idea of marrying someone else, especially someone he had known for less than 6 months, felt rushed and almost like a betrayal of Catherine's memory. But Namwan was patient. She said she understood his hesitation, that she was not trying to replace Catherine, that marriage was simply a practical step that would make their life together easier in Thailand. "I love you, Jon," she said, "but this is not just about emotions. This is about building a real life together, a legal and social framework that protects both of us and allows us to do what we want to do. In Thailand, marriage matters. It opens doors. It creates stability. And I want that stability with you." Jonathan thought about it for several weeks. He talked to Emily about it, though he did not mention the business aspects, just the relationship. Emily was cautious. She said it seemed fast, that he should take more time, that he barely knew this woman. But Jonathan told her that life was short, that he had already lost Catherine and spent 3 years alone, that he deserved to be happy again. In early July of 2023, Jonathan and Namwan got married at the Phuket provincial office. It was a simple civil ceremony with 2 of Namwan's friends serving as witnesses. Namwan wore an elegant cream-colored dress, and Jonathan wore a suit. After the ceremony, they had lunch at a nice restaurant in Phuket town, and Namwan posted photos on her Facebook page with captions about finding true love later in life. Jonathan felt proud and hopeful. He had found a partner who understood him, who shared his ambitions, who made him feel alive again. He believed they were building something real, something lasting, something that would give his life meaning in his retirement years. He was wrong about all of it. After the marriage, Namwan became more directly involved in Jonathan's finances. She suggested they open joint bank accounts to make it easier to manage household expenses and business investments. She said it was standard practice for married couples in Thailand, and that it would simplify their financial planning. Jonathan agreed. He opened a joint account at Bangkok Bank and transferred $200,000 into it, money he planned to use for living expenses and potential business investments. Namwan also became the primary manager of their business venture. They registered a company called Andaman Luxury Consultants, with Namwan holding 51% ownership and Jonathan holding 49%, as required by Thai law. The company would provide high-end travel planning, property rental services, and concierge assistance to wealthy clients. Jonathan invested $100,000 as startup capital money for marketing, office setup, website development, and initial operating expenses. On paper, everything seemed legitimate. They had a business plan, a registered company, a clear division of responsibilities. Namwan handled the Thai legal and regulatory aspects, while Jonathan focused on marketing to Western clients and developing strategic partnerships. They rented a small office in Patong, hired a part-time assistant, and began building their client base. But gradually, Jonathan began to notice concerning patterns. Namwan was increasingly secretive about the company's finances. When Jonathan asked to review the books, she would tell him that Thai accounting practices were different from American ones, that the statements were all in Thai, that she would translate them for him when she had time. When Jonathan suggested they hire a bilingual accountant, Namwan became defensive, saying it was an unnecessary expense and that she was perfectly capable of managing the finances. Namwan also began asking Jonathan to transfer more money into their joint account. She said they needed additional capital for business expenses, advertising costs, professional fees, equipment purchases. Each time, she would show Jonathan invoices and receipts, all in Thai, and explain what the expenses were for. Jonathan trusted her. She was his wife. She had proven herself competent and trustworthy over the past 6 months. He authorized the transfers. By October of 2023, Jonathan had transferred a total of $500,000 into accounts that Namwan controlled or had access to. He still had approximately $400,000 in his U.S. accounts, but he was starting to feel uncomfortable with how much of his wealth was now tied up in Thailand, in accounts and business structures he did not fully understand. He tried to talk to Namwan about it. He said he wanted to have a clearer picture of their overall financial situation, that he wanted to understand the business cash flow, that he wanted to make sure they were making sound decisions. Namwan became hurt and defensive. She said he did not trust her, that he was treating her like an employee rather than a partner, that she was offended by his lack of confidence in her abilities. "John, I have done nothing but help you since the day we met," she said, tears in her eyes. "I have guided you through every legal process, helped you build this beautiful life in Thailand, and now you question me? Do you think I am stealing from you? Do you think I am some kind of criminal?" Jonathan immediately backed down. He did not want to hurt her. He did not want her to feel like he doubted her. He told her he was sorry, that he was just being cautious out of habit, that he trusted her completely. Namwan seemed mollified, but the conversation left Jonathan with a lingering sense of unease that he could not quite shake. In November of 2023, Namwan suggested they restructure the villa ownership. She said the current lease arrangement was too complicated and expensive, with annual renewal fees and ongoing legal costs. She said if they transferred the property into her name as his legal spouse, it would simplify everything and provide better long-term security. She showed Jonathan documents from their lawyer explaining how spousal property transfer worked under Thai law. Jonathan was hesitant. The villa was worth approximately $350,000, and it was his primary asset in Thailand. Transferring it entirely into Namwan's name felt risky, even though she was his wife. But Namwan was insistent. She said it was the most efficient way to structure foreign property ownership in Thailand, that it was what most expat Thai married couples did, that it protected both of them legally. "John, we are married," she said. "What is mine is yours, and what is yours is mine. This is not about ownership. This is about doing things the right way under Thai law. I am not going to steal your villa. I am your wife. We are building a life together." Jonathan consulted with their lawyer, who confirmed that spousal property transfer was common and legal. The lawyer did note that if the marriage ended, property division would be complex, but he emphasized that as long as the marriage was stable, this was the most straightforward approach for foreign property ownership. Jonathan signed the transfer documents. The villa was now legally owned by Namwan. Jonathan told himself it did not matter they were married, they were partners. The villa was still their home. But a small voice in the back of his mind, a voice that sounded suspiciously like Emily, was telling him that he was making a terrible mistake. In December of 2023, Namwan told Jonathan she needed to make a business trip to Bangkok for a week. She said she was meeting with potential investors and clients, that it was a crucial opportunity to expand their business. Jonathan offered to come with her, but Namwan said it would be better if she went alone. The meetings were all in Thai, and she would be more effective without having to translate and explain everything. Jonathan stayed in Phuket while Namwan went to Bangkok. During that week, he received regular updates from her, photos of business meetings, messages about positive conversations with potential clients, optimistic reports about the future of Andaman luxury consultants. Everything seemed normal, but on the morning Namwan was scheduled to return to Phuket, Jonathan received a text message from her. "John, I am so sorry. I have made a terrible mistake. I need to leave Thailand. Please do not try to find me. I hope you can forgive me someday." Jonathan felt his blood run cold. He tried calling her immediately. The phone was disconnected. He checked their joint bank account on his phone. The balance showed $372, $500,000 gone. He checked the business account, empty. He tried logging into the company's online banking portal. His access had been revoked. Jonathan drove to their office in Patong. It was empty, computers gone, files gone, furniture gone. The landlord told him the lease had been terminated 2 days earlier, and the security deposit had been returned to the company account holder. Jonathan went to the villa. He searched through Namwan's belongings, looking for any clue about where she had gone or what had happened. Her passport was gone, her clothes were gone. But in a drawer in her desk, he found a folder of documents, property transfer papers, business registration forms, banking authorizations. All of them bore his signature. All of them had transferred his assets into her name or into accounts she controlled. Jonathan sat on the terrace of the villa, his villa, which was no longer legally his, and tried to understand what had happened. He pulled out his phone and checked his US bank accounts. Namwan had never had direct access to those, but Jonathan had authorized several large wire transfers over the past months for what she had said were business investments. Those accounts, which had once held $400,000, now held approximately $180,000. $720,000. Gone. Transferred, withdrawn, moved through a series of accounts and business entities that Namwan had controlled, and the villa, his home, his retirement dream, was no longer his. Jonathan went to the Phuket police station the next morning. He brought all the documents he could find, all the bank statements, all the evidence of what Namwan had done. The officer he spoke with looked through the papers and shook his head. "This is civil matter, not criminal matter," the officer said. "She is your wife. You gave her access to accounts. You signed property transfer documents. Everything legal. If you want to pursue this, you need lawyer for divorce and asset recovery. Police cannot help." Jonathan hired a lawyer, an expensive Bangkok-based attorney who specialized in international cases. The lawyer reviewed everything and delivered devastating news. Every transaction had been legal. Jonathan had voluntarily signed documents transferring property and authorizing financial transfers. Namwan had not forged his signature or stolen his identity. She had simply used the legal access he had given her as his wife and business partner. "The property is in her name," the lawyer said. "The business assets are in her name or in company accounts she controls. The money you transferred into joint accounts was legally hers to use. Unless you can prove that she married you specifically to defraud you, which is extremely difficult to prove, you have no legal recourse." "But she is gone," Jonathan said. "She disappeared. She clearly planned this. Where did she go?" "I do not know. I have been trying to find out." The lawyer made some calls and came back with more bad news. Namwan had left Thailand on a flight to Dubai. She had traveled on a Thai passport under a slightly different name, a legitimate passport, apparently obtained legally through a name change process Jonathan had known nothing about. She had wired the money from the joint accounts to international accounts in the UAE and Singapore, where Thai authorities had no jurisdiction. "She is gone, Mr. Barrett, and your money is gone with her. I am very sorry, but there is nothing we can do." Jonathan tried to call Emily to tell her what had happened. She answered on the third ring, and when he explained, there was a long, painful silence. "Dad, I told you this was a mistake," Emily finally said, her voice shaking with anger and frustration. "I told you it was too fast. I told you to be careful, and you married her anyway. You gave her everything." "I thought she loved me," Jonathan said, his voice breaking. "She didn't love you, Dad. She saw a wealthy, lonely widower and she took advantage of you, and now you have nothing. Can you help me? I need to figure out what to do next. Dad, I can't. I have my own family, my own problems. You made this choice. You have to deal with the consequences. I'm sorry, but I can't bail you out." Emily hung up. Jonathan tried calling back, but she did not answer. Jonathan had approximately $180,000 left in his U.S. account's money. Namwan had not been able to access directly, but the villa was gone. The business was gone. $720,000 was gone. Jonathan could not afford to stay in the villa. He no longer legally owned it, and Namwan could return at any time and evict him. He packed his belongings and moved into a cheap serviced apartment in Patong. Over the next few months, Jonathan learned more about Namwan. He spoke with other expats in Phuket, posted in Facebook groups, and pieced together a disturbing picture. Namwan had done this before, at least 3 times that other expats knew about. She targeted wealthy foreign men, built trust over months, married them, gained access to their assets, and then disappeared. She operated under different names, traveled frequently, and always left before her victims fully realized what was happening. One man, a German retiree named Hans, told Jonathan he had lost 200,000 euros to Namwan 3 years earlier. Hans said she had used a slightly different name then, but it was definitely the same woman, same face, same tactics, same professional demeanor that made her seem trustworthy. "She is very good at what she does," Hans said. "She is not like the bar girls or the obvious scammers. She targets successful men, educated men, men who think they are too smart to fall for scams, and she destroys them." Jonathan stayed in Thailand, but not in Phuket. The memories were too painful, the sense of humiliation too overwhelming. He moved to Chiang Mai, rented a cheap 1-bedroom apartment for 12,000 baht per month, and tried to figure out how to rebuild his life. He was 62 years old, with approximately $180,000 left, enough to survive, but nowhere near enough to maintain the lifestyle he had imagined for his retirement. He needed income. He reached out to his old business partner in Dallas, a man named Robert, who still ran a property consulting firm. Robert, out of long friendship and sympathy, offered Jonathan a remote position, processing invoices, reviewing contracts, and providing occasional consulting advice. The job paid $1,200 per month, a fraction of what Jonathan had once earned, but enough to supplement his savings and allow him to survive in Thailand. Jonathan now spends his days working on his laptop in his small apartment, processing paperwork for a company halfway around the world. He has no social life, no romantic prospects, no dreams of building anything meaningful. He simply exists, moving through each day, with the quiet resignation of a man who knows he destroyed his own life. Over time, Jonathan has come to understand the sophistication of what Namwan did to him. It was not a spontaneous, opportunistic scam. It was a carefully planned, professionally executed long con. Namwan had identified him as a target from the moment she first responded to his Facebook post. She had researched him, understood his vulnerabilities, and crafted a persona specifically designed to earn his trust. The professional helper phase had been deliberate. By offering free assistance and demonstrating competence, Namwan had established herself as trustworthy and altruistic. The slow evolution into romance had been calculated to avoid seeming opportunistic. The business venture had provided legitimate cover for the financial transfers. The marriage had given her legal access to his assets. And the property transfer had been the final trap, locking Jonathan's primary asset into her name under Thai law. Every step had been planned. Every document Jonathan signed had been part of a larger scheme, and Namwan had executed it flawlessly, leaving Jonathan with no legal recourse and no way to recover what he had lost. Jonathan now tries to warn other expats about what happened to him. He posts in Facebook groups, talks to newcomers in Chiang Mai, and shares his story with anyone who will listen. But he knows most people will not take his warning seriously. They will think they are smarter, more careful, that their situation is different. Jonathan thought the same thing. He was a successful property developer with decades of business experience. He had built and sold projects worth millions of dollars. He was not naive or gullible, but he was lonely, grieving, and desperate to believe that someone could love him. And that vulnerability was all Namwan needed. Jonathan Barrett is 62 years old, and he lost $720,000, more than 3/4 of his life savings, to a woman he married after knowing her for 5 months. He lost his villa, his business, his dreams of a comfortable retirement in paradise. He lost everything to someone who saw him not as a partner or a husband, but as a high-value target in a professional scam operation. Namwan never loved him. She studied him, understood his vulnerabilities, and executed a long con with the precision of someone who had done it multiple times before. She was not a desperate bar girl or an uneducated opportunist. She was an educated, sophisticated professional criminal who specialized in high-value expat marriage scams. Jonathan sits in his small apartment in Chiang Mai now, processing invoices for his old business partner, and he thinks about the choices he made. He thinks about the moment he first responded to Namwan's message, the moment he agreed to let her handle his property documents, the moment he signed the marriage papers, the moment he transferred the villa into her name. He thinks about all the warning signs he ignored, all the voices he dismissed, all the moments when he could have walked away, but chose to trust instead. He did not lose his money to love. He lost it to his need to be loved. And that need made him vulnerable to someone who understood exactly how to exploit it. This is his life now. This is his future. And every morning, when he wakes up in his cheap apartment and opens his laptop to begin another day of processing invoices, he is reminded of exactly how much it cost to believe that someone could love him. Jonathan's story is a devastating reminder that the most dangerous romance scammers are not the obvious ones. They are the educated, professional, sophisticated operators who target successful people specifically because those people think they are too smart to be scammed. If this documentary has opened your eyes to how high-level these operations can be, please subscribe and share this video. These stories need to be told because predators like Namwan are still out there, still targeting vulnerable people, still destroying lives with carefully calculated precision. Stay vigilant, protect your assets, trust slowly, and remember, real love never requires you to sign away your entire life in a language you don't understand. Thank you for watching, and please, stay safe.